Imagine two countries facing the exact same problem. Their citizens speak different languages and belong to different cultural groups, and everyone wants a say in how things are run. One of these nations figured out a way to live together peacefully. The other fell into a devastating war. Here are our two examples, Belgium and Sri Lanka. On the left, Belgium has a Dutch-speaking majority at 59% and a French-speaking minority at 40%. On the right, Sri Lanka has a Sinhala-speaking majority at 74% and a Tamil-speaking minority at 18%. In both nations, those imbalances created massive friction. Because one group heavily outnumbered the other, people grew suspicious. Everyone was worried about who would get to make the rules and who might get left behind. The survival of both nations came down to a single choice. How do you handle the demand for power when your country is divided? Sri Lanka took a winner-take-all approach known as majoritarianism. This is the belief that the biggest group should rule the country however it wants, completely ignoring the needs of everyone else. We can see that strategy in action in the first two steps of this chart. In 1956, the government passed a law making Sinhala the only official language. Then, the state began favoring the majority for the best university spots and government jobs. Looking at the next steps, you can see the reaction. The Tamil-speaking minority felt like strangers in their own land. Their culture was being ignored, which eventually led them to demand their own independent state. When those demands were denied, the tension exploded into a brutal civil war. Thousands of people were killed, families were forced to flee as refugees, and the entire country's economy was set back for decades. The lesson here is that when a majority uses its numbers to bully others, it doesn't just hurt the minority, it eventually destroys the stability of the entire nation. Belgium chose a different path. They decided to adjust their entire system to make room for everyone. They called this approach accommodation, and to make it work, their leaders actually rewrote their constitution 4 separate times. They built a unique model to share control. At the national level, the bottom block here, they agreed that the government must have an exact equal number of French and Dutch-speaking ministers. No single group can make big decisions on their own. Moving up the chart, they also gave the individual state governments their own massive powers. These states aren't just taking orders from the center. They have the authority to manage their own affairs. Then there's the capital city, Brussels. Because the population split there was the opposite of the rest of the country, they created a separate city government where both communities share power equally. Finally, at the very top, they added a community government. This group is elected by people who speak the same language, and they are the ones in charge of specific things, like culture, education, and language rules. This complicated arrangement actually worked. By making sure everyone was included, Belgium avoided the kind of violence we saw in Sri Lanka. In fact, Brussels became so stable that it was chosen as the headquarters for the entire European Union. Belgium proved that making room for diversity, even if it's politically complex, is the only reliable way to keep a diverse nation unified. So why is this kind of sharing so important? Political experts point to 2 main reasons why sharing control is the only way for a democracy to stay stable. The first reason is practical. It's a strategic calculation. Sharing power avoids social conflicts and keeps the peace. The second reason is moral. In a democracy, people have a right to be involved in decisions affecting their lives. Sharing power makes a government legitimate. Making sure everyone has a seat at the table isn't just a nice idea for dreamers. It is a hard necessity for a government to survive. So how do we actually do it? Modern democracies have moved away from the old idea of one person holding all the power. Instead, they spread control out in 4 ways. First, you spread power horizontally. Think of the government as 3 gears: the people making laws, those carrying them out, and the judges. They sit on the same level and check each other, so no branch gets too much control. You can also stack power vertically. In this system, known as federalism, a national government handles the big picture stuff while sharing authority with state and local communities so they can manage their own affairs. Power can also be shared among different social groups, like the language communities in Belgium, or between different political parties who team up to run the government together. It might seem like giving up absolute control would make a government weaker, but history shows that when a democracy shares its power, it doesn't divide the nation's strength. It